Hey guys, welcome back to Khanvolution. My name's Khan, and right now I'm going through an episodic breakdown from episodes 1 through 8 of Season 2 of The Witcher. Yes, Season 2, because just a couple of days ago we had that massive WitcherCon where we got teaser trailers, full-length trailers, we got screenshots, and of course we got the episode logos, which sort of are like the biggest clues to exactly the timeline that's going to take place throughout Witcher Season 2, which is what I'm going to delve into. I've been going through like screenshots and videos and all this different stuff, like going back to like the Blood of Elves novel, which I think is going to be the main focal point for this season. I think they've actually discussed that took quite a length in their interviews as well, and potentially a little bit of Time of Contempt as well. So I'm going to try and break down these episodes as best I can, and I'll share with you guys when I think specific characters are going to be introduced, at what episodes, which characters have the potential of actually dying, and of course I'm going to share what I think this last top secret logo is, because if you guys recall what happened in season 1, episodes 1 through 7's logos sort of melded and mixed together to form the logo of episode 8. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's what's going to happen in season 2. If you recall, the logo for episode 8 was very significant because it was Geralt's wolf, Ciri's swallow, and of course Yennefer's stone. So this one is also going to be just as significant. I mean, why else would it be top secret, right? And I'll give you guys my intake of what I think this image actually is and what it portrays. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into all things Witcher, bro. I'm so excited to share my thoughts with you guys. Okay, so let's start with episode 1, titled A Grain of Truth. A Grain of Truth is the little short story that takes place in, I believe, the Last Wish novel. So basically in the short story, Geralt is tracking dead bodies and a sort of like some animals have been hunting all these humans in the local area. His search basically leads him to this sort of abandoned mansion, right? And the moment he gets there, there's a sort of bear-like humanoid creature that comes out and sort of bares its fangs and roars at the Witcher, but it seems to have some manner of intelligence. Now, if you remember back in season 1 when he was fighting the Sylvan, Geralt has a soft spot for intelligent beings, so he was ready to let the Sylvan go. And his mercy towards the Sylvan is actually what allowed him to, survive the wrath of the elves, Filavandrel and his elf gang, basically, that's hiding from all the humans. And Geralt's humanity towards this bear-like creature is actually what allows him to, receive the bear's hospitality, because what this bear actually is actually an aristocrat named Nivellen, and he was actually cursed because he did something very terrible to a woman a long time ago, and so he is cursed to become like this sort of beast. It's a very, I mentioned this in my previous Witcher video, is that this is a very Beauty and the Beast sort of storyline, and this symbol, at first it kind of looks like a bat, but at the same time if you look closer, it kind of looks like the bottom part is like a chalice. And I think what this means is that when Geralt tries to become friends with Nivellen and try to see him as a human rather than a monster, Nivellen has like these magical properties that he acquired through the curse that he received as well. So he the moment he flips his finger, like the lights turn on. The moment he stomps his feet, like all this food appears on the plate, and so they both eat together and tell each other stories and whatnot. So I believe this symbol is also a chalice that sort of signifies Nivellen's hospitality to Geralt as well. You know what I'm saying? Funny enough, Nivellen isn't alone in this mansion. He also has a lover there as well named Verena, who actually ends up being a Bruxa, a specific type of vampire. So we actually see that in the trailer where Geralt is forced to fight Verena. I won't exactly go into how the story ends, but in terms of what I think the series will do, because Geralt goes through this storyline in the short story The Last Wish before he even meets Ciri. I think the opening scene for season 2 is actually going to be with Tissaia de Vries right after the battle at Sodden Hill, and you'll see that image of where Tissaia is still screaming for Yennefer and where she is. She's trying to go through all the bodies to see if Yennefer made it out alive, and we might see Triss's body as well, or not. Triss obviously is alive, but like her injuries, her mortal injuries, and what she's going through, and hopefully Sabrina Glevasik is alive as well. I thought she died at the end of season 1, but she's alive in the book, so I'm hoping she's alive as well. And so we might see what happened to a lot of the sorceresses that fought at the end of the battle at Sodden Hill, and now that the Temerian army is there obviously the Nilfgaardians have fled, at least for now, you know what I'm saying? And then we're gonna shift back to Ciri and Geralt, where we see that episode 1 is literally gonna be about Ciri having those nightmares about Cahir, or Featherhead, you know, Nilfgaardian trooper, who was like basically the main antagonist of season 1, sort of, you know, him and Fringilla, obviously from the Nilfgaardian army. Ciri's gonna be having all these, you know, flashbacks to, you know, her trauma from the fall of Sintra, and Geralt's gonna see this happening, and we might get one of Ciri's special visions or moments, and this might be Geralt's first introduction to seeing that Ciri has the same powers as her mother Pavetta, because he's seen what Pavetta was capable of in episode 4 of season 1. She is technically what the book's called a source, and the source is basically a very powerful sort of mage, and it mainly focuses on elder blood. And humans who have elder blood in them, which falls back to a strong bloodline lineage from elves from a different world, basically. Yes, a different world. Ciri has that genetic quality to her, that she has the elder blood. That's why she's such an important character in the Witcher novels, is because everybody's after this power that's in her blood. I kind of went off on a tangent, but basically I think while Ciri and Geralt are traversing and trying to make their way to Kaer Morhen, they're going to find Nivellen's mansion. They're going to follow suit with the storyline. We have the scene where Ciri meets all these other ladies, and she's wearing the same clothes. The clothes are also a clue. There's a screenshot of where Ciri's wearing like her normal blue outfit, and I think when she gets to Nivellen's mansion, she's going to switch to the white outfit instead. You know, and she's going to meet all these other girls that might be living in Nivellen's mansion along with Verena. Who knows, man? I'm not sure, but I think that's the way the storyline is progressing. And then we'll see Geralt fight the Bruxa. We'll see, you know, Ciri try to save all these other girls from Nivellen's grasp. Nivellen actually is not such a bad character at the end of his short story, but you know, the creators might take some creative liberties with the series and sort of portray him as the villain, or maybe Verena the Bruxa as the victim. Who knows? I don't know, but I think that's what's going to happen. This episode 1, A Grain of Truth, is going to focus on this story, and I think episode 1 might not have any Yennefer at all. We might not see any Yennefer at all, but we might see a little bit of like what the Nilfgaardian troops are up to. You know, Cahir. We might see, you know, Fringilla, Vigo. We might go into her backstory a little bit as well, because she seems to be like a very important character going forward as well. So the episode 1 logo is not just the chalice, but it's also the vampire. It's also like the winged vampire sort of gargoyle-like image, and it's depicting Verena, who is actually a, you know, a higher level Bruxa. I think the point of episode 1 being this short story is to introduce Ciri to the world of the Witcher. What the Witchers do is basically hunt monsters, even though they come in various different shapes and forms. And also maybe it'll show Ciri a little bit of the Witcher's humanity towards Nivellen and his inhumanity to maybe monsters like Verena. You know what I'm saying? We'll have to see how the story goes, but I think by the moment Ciri and Geralt leave, they'll have a much more stronger bond and understanding of who each other is. You know what I'm saying? And that leads our way to episode 2, which is Kaer Morhen. The symbol of Kaer Morhen is the Witcher symbol, the School of the Wolf symbol, but it depicts a much like the wolf's skull instead, and a much more older wolf, which might be an indication of Vesemir, the one who trained Geralt in the art of the Witcher. However, the Witcher symbol, or the Witcher's wolf head, is wrapped around a group of very old vines and thorns and weeds. So it might be depicting Kaer Morhen as like this sort of rundown, almost like battle-worn heavy fortress. And it basically is, because Kaer Morhen was an incredible location where they used to train witchers, create new witchers, used to craft, you know, potions and spells, like used to have many more witchers in station there. However, I think what we'll go into in Vesemir's backstory, which is the Nightmare of the Wolf, which is the reason why the anime series is called A Nightmare, is because we'll see the fall of Kaer Morhen at the hands of like the one specific sorcerer and a whole bunch of angry townspeople. But going back to the title, we're gonna see, you know, Ciri come in with Geralt, and Geralt introducing Ciri to, you know, not only Vesemir, but we're going to see Eskel, we're going to see Lambert, we're going to see Cohen. And I think this episode, Ciri will like traverse through Kaer Morhen, seeing all the different locations and environments, and, you know, we'll also see the medallion tree, which the producer mentioned. The medallion tree is basically a tree where they hang all the medallions of their fallen brethren. And we actually saw in episode 3 of season 1 where Geralt actually took the medallion off of of the dead Witcher who was killed by the Striga in episode 3 when Foltest didn't want to tell anybody that the Striga had bested a Witcher. So, and I'm sure we're gonna get a scene where he puts that medallion on the medallion tree and sort of just add to the sort of this memorial that they've crafted for the Witcher. And obviously we'll get all these like cool introductions with like Eskel, Lambert, and Vesemir, and all the Witcher sort of introducing themselves to Ciri and sort of questioning Geralt about who Ciri is, what she is, and why she's been brought over here, And I think this will be a very good way of Vesemir connecting to Geralt, because just the way Vesemir mentored Geralt is now having to mentor and be a father figure to Ciri, and we'll get a lot of those images as well. And at the same time, we saw Henry Cavill's Geralt, training, because he got injured in his leg, and he has to train to get back to his his prime, and obviously get his new badass armor suit. You know what I'm saying? So it's going to be a lot of that as well. And interesting enough, here's where I want to talk about some very, very potential spoilers, which is the actor for Eskel is an actor by the name of Basil Eidenbenz. There have been a lot of speculations of a major Witcher fight scene that might take place either in episode 2 Kaer Morhen or episode 3 What Is Lost. And in this fight, they say that they're going to actually fight a Leshy. And I think the Leshy is like a monster right out of like Slavic myths and legends. And so and it looks freaking crazy. I looked at an image of it earlier, and I think in this fight one of the Witchers is gonna die, and the speculations online is saying that it might be Eskel. I think Eskel might die, even though he's alive in the books. However, I went on IMDb, but Eskel's present in the IMDb pages for all 8 episodes. But the thing is, even the actor who plays Nivellen for episode 1, and I think I'm 100% sure he's only gonna be in episode 1, is still is still present in like 6 episodes. So we can't really trust IMDb's information 100% about their episode inventory of the actors. But the speculation, I'm just saying that the speculation online is that Eskel's character has the most likely chance of dying from this battle with the Leshy. So we're gonna see Ciri potentially start off fighting and training with Geralt and whatnot, and going jumping on vines and trying to be like a cat as she makes her way. And that's a lot of what this symbol reminds me of, because around Kaer Morhen, it's very difficult to get to Kaer Morhen. There's a lot of sharp, jagged rocks. It's a lot of forested environments, a lot of vines and thorns, and that's actually helps the Witchers train young Witchers, and that's what Ciri does a lot of, is jumping along vines and on trees and stuff, and running across little connective branches, and that just goes on to emphasize what Kaer Morhen is really about and whatnot. So we're gonna see a lot of Kaer Morhen. We're gonna see Ciri training with a lot of these different Witchers, Eskel, Lambert, and I think the episode might end off with a battle against the Leshy, and see that maybe she makes a very strong connection with Eskel, and Eskel's the one who ends up dying at the end, which sort of emphasizes the very cruel world that the Witchers have to live in. That there's not very many people around to cry for a Witcher when he passes. And so it might open up a much more harsher reality to Ciri, which leads in to basically episode 3. And I think actually at the end of episode 2 we might get to see Yennefer finally, because we know that Yennefer, wherever she teleported to, she's going to get caught by Fringilla. Fringilla is going to be capture and keep Yennefer captive for quite a while at the hands of the Nilfgaardian army. And I think Yennefer, as Yennefer always does, will find some way to escape. And I think this might play into a little bit of the storyline that they might bring in from Baptism of Fire as well. But I'll delve into that in the upcoming episodes. Okay, so episode 3 is titled What Is Lost, and the What Is Lost symbol is a swallow. So this episode, being titled What Is Lost, might focus mainly on all the stuff that Cirilla has lost in her past. The fall of Sintra, losing her grandmother, her adoptive grandfather, her parents, mysteriously, vanished when she was incredibly young. All the friends that she's lost along the way, all the friends that turned against her at the episode 7 in season 1, losing Dara in season 1 as well. Oh boy, we gotta talk about Dara. Dude, some of you guys blew my mind in the comments for previous reaction to the season 2 trailer, but damn, we gotta talk about Dara too. So What Is Lost is basically gonna focus on Ciri continuing to train as a Witcher, continuing to develop her skills, and I think this is where we're gonna get introduced to Triss Merigold. Triss Merigold is gonna be summoned by Geralt to help Geralt and all the other Witchers determine exactly what Ciri's is truly capable of. Her powers as a source, same power that Pavetta has, the same power of the Elder Blood. And so Triss is gonna show up, and they're gonna meet. And there's this very interesting scene in the books where they meet each other, and they're around this sort of meadow area, and Ciri's like, crazy prophetic abilities activate, and she starts saying crazy stuff to Triss about like her being the 14th sorceress to pass away from the Battle of Sodden Hill. And it's like, you're supposed to be dead, because Triss almost died. Something special about Triss made her survive, and I still haven't figured it out yet, because I still haven't read the end of The Lady of the Lake. But there's something incredibly special about Triss, and Triss is one character that I've been very much invested in while I've been going through the Witcher novels, and I really hope there's a great payoff for Triss's character arc, specifically in season 2, simply because we got so much of her in season 1. And I think Anna Schofer, the actress for Triss Merigold, does a fantastic job. I already made a connection with Triss Merigold in episode 1, without even knowing about the character that much outside from the video game. You know what I'm saying? So, and now she actually has her sort of chestnut colored hair. So I mean, you can't argue with that shit no more. I think she looks fabulous. She looks damn ass good in her new hairstyle and whatnot. So, and Triss is a very important character for Ciri's growth as well, because she's the only other woman who arrives and actually helps train Ciri in Kaer Morhen. Because in the books, Ciri is, much younger and going through puberty, and so all the Witchers are dudes, and they'd have like no idea how to handle this. So Triss Merigold is a major help to Ciri in just learning about what it means to be a woman, and like going through all the physical changes, and at the same time teaching all the other Witchers, all these guys, how to take care of Ciri, not just to treat her as another dude, and not to, because I think in this episode what we'll also see is like, Ciri's going to be taking a certain level of potions to help enhance her physical capabilities, but they also like do the opposite for her like feminine qualities and feminine physical traits as well. So Triss helps to like be the balance in Ciri's training as a Witcher, basically. And we'll also see, I think, in episode 3, this sort of romance growing in between Triss and Geralt, because Triss and Geralt in the books have had a very like passion-filled history in the past. So I think what we might see is with Triss Merigold living in Kaer Morhen with Ciri and Geralt, there might be some sexual tension, romantic tension building between Geralt and Triss in this episode specifically. So I'm excited always for more Triss Merigold, but also to see what she's been up to as well, and what her backstory has been leading her up to this episode, especially after the events of Sodden Hill. And this episode might be a really good way of depicting on what is lost, not only for Ciri, but for Triss and for Geralt as well. And of course, what is lost also might refer to like Kaer Morhen in general. Maybe like the what is lost could refer to, the death of Eskel in episode 2, or the death of Eskel might happen in episode 3. I don't know. There's a lot of cool speculations to be had. And I think that episode 3 will introduce us to other sorceresses that Fringilla is in cahoots with. For example, Francesca Fendebeyer, who is supposed to be the most beautiful woman in the Witcher world. And she's an elven sorceress. And I think her storyline will see that she has to communicate with Yennefer for one reason or another, even before the events of the upcoming seasons. Because she plays an incredible role in Yennefer's storyline. So I think we'll have to see her and Fringilla both play an incredible role in Yennefer's storyline going forward. So I think what they might do is that Francesca Fendebeyer, by some manner or means, might have a role in letting Yennefer go, because that's something that happens in the upcoming Witcher novels, but that they might sort of bring it here instead, and she might be the reason that Yennefer escapes, or Yennefer is allowed to escape, or something like that, and that might happen this episode, who knows. And with Francesca Fendebeyer, we might get a little bit more knowledge about what the elves are up to as well. We might get a scene where Phil Evandrel comes back and bows to Francesca Fendebeyer, because she ultimately becomes the queen of the elves at one point. Then we jump into episode 4, which is Redanian Intelligence. And this is probably the most obvious episode. The symbol for this episode is basically Cloak and Dagger, and I'll get into what I think this Cloak and Dagger represents. But Redanian Intelligence basically talks about the intelligence agency in Redania, which is actually, a lot of people argue that in the Witcher novels, the Redanian Intelligence or Redanian Secret Service is much, much more better than even the Nilfgaardian Secret Service, because you have the head of that agency, which is Sigismund Dijkstra, or Dijkstra, however you want to pronounce it, but I pronounce it as Dijkstra from the books. But he is in cahoots with one of the sorceresses, Philippa Eilhart, who's also been cast for season 2 as well. And they basically have information on everything. If you think of Game of Thrones, Dijkstra is kind of like the Varys. He has like little birds all throughout, the Witcher world, all throughout the north, all throughout the south, feeding him information about exactly what's going on. And he's actually quite interested in Cirilla as well. I mean, like, who isn't? But like, he's interested in Ciri and what the potential for that is for the Kingdom of Redania and his own power going forward. But Dijkstra is just one of those characters who's very political and definitely wants to get ahead of the curve in terms of the political atmosphere that's developing through the northern conflict that's constant throughout season 1. And delving into the second war, which is going to start at the end of season 2, I'm guessing. Yeah, we'll definitely get to see what Dijkstra is up to, and we'll all probably get introduced to Jaskier in this episode as well, because Dijkstra actually corners Jaskier to find out the whereabouts of Geralt and Ciri and where they are. And we might actually get this one scene. This cloak and dagger, I think, is going to represent one of our main antagonists for this season, which is a sorcerer by the name of Ryons. Because what ends up happening in the books, and one of my favorite scenes in the Blood of Elves novels, is that Ryons corners Jaskier to reveal the information and whereabouts of Geralt and Ciri, because everybody's after Ciri, as I just indicated. But Ryons tries to get that out of Jaskier. Jaskier obviously doesn't want to out his best friend, even though they had such a break at the end of episode 6 of season 1. But who comes to Jaskier's rescue but Yennefer? Yennefer kicks Ryons' ass, gives him a badass scar, and Ryons is forced to flee. And I absolutely love that scene, and I that's why I think Yennefer is gonna find a way to be released at the end of episode 3 and finally find her way to Jaskier in episode 4, when we get introduced to Jaskier and Dijkstra and all of the Redanian army as well. I think King Vesemir of Redania has also been cast as well, so we'll get to see like what Dijkstra's relationship with the king is, what his own interests are, what his relationship with Philippa Eilhart is, as well as what Philippa Eilhart is up to in terms of her sort of plans with all the other sorceresses. We might get a scene with her getting into contact with Tissaia de Vries. We might even get Stregobor at one point, in this episode. So we might definitely see how Redania and the sorceresses are, what they're doing, Yennefer and Jaskier scenes as well. In the novel, Jaskier never joins Yennefer on her journey. But in this live action version of the series, we might actually see, for the benefit of, putting characters together, we might see Jaskier journeying with Yennefer a little bit in this episode as well. So who knows where things might go. So just to summarize everything, Redanian intelligence is going to be about all the secret service in Redania, and the cloak and dagger, I think, is symbolizing Ryons as the main villain of this season. Of course, Ryons is working under somebody even higher than him, but it might be his confrontation with Yennefer and Jaskier in this episode. Alright, episode 5 is Turn Your Back. Now this one is a little bit harder to figure out, but I think I have a good idea what Turn Your Back episode 5 is going to be about. Obviously we see an unbalanced scale, but the middle center fulcrum point of the scale is actually a dagger. So I think what this symbolizes is just the unbalanced racial inequalities that exist in the world of The Witcher. Because I think how this episode is going to start off, we might see a Yennefer a little bit just journeying her own way and trying to figure out more about Geralt and what he's up to. And I think before Francesca helps release Yennefer from her captivity, or before Yennefer escapes on her own, she'll learn about Ciri, she'll learn about Geralt, and the information surrounding everything. Because even though Yennefer and Ciri have never met, they're still connected by destiny, obviously. But at the same time, Yennefer has to play a huge role in how Ciri came to be. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Yennefer has played a role. Yennefer's been alive for a long time, and Yennefer's played a huge role in how series came to be. And I'm not going to dive into why I'm phrasing it that way. I'll go into it in my later videos, because that's something to delve into a lot later. But I think this balance is sort of representing the imbalance of racial inequality within this episode, because what I think this episode is going to start off with is Triss, Geralt, and Ciri are going to leave to take Ciri away from Kaer Morhen after her training has been done, or her training has gone as far as it can go, to the Temple of Melitele, or Melitele as the series pronounces it, because Triss is quite familiar with the Temple of Melitele. Ciri and Triss and Geralt are going to go on this journey together. We'll have an episode with just the three of them. In the books, what ends up happening is throughout the journey, they end up meeting a group of dwarves who are transporting these goods along with some other humans, but they're attacked by the Scoia'tael, which are basically elven assassins, or elven like rogue squadrons that like go around different areas and like attack random people and like for treasure, as well as like for the Nilfgaardian Secret Service as well. The Scoia'tael are actually working with the Nilfgaardians, so you can think of them as like pseudo bad guys for our story's purposes anyway. But this is where I think one of you guys actually went in my comment section and let me know that this might be a good location to introduce Dara back into the story, because remember, Dara is an elf and he has a lot of animosity towards humans, especially Sintrans, for killing his family as well. So what we might see is Dara might be part of the Scoia'tael, and Ciri might recognize him, and they might have this like sort of enemies on a different side sort of moment. They might actually end up fighting one another. This might be a good opportunity for us to see how far Ciri has come in terms of her combat, And we also, in that, at least in that specific point in the book, Ciri and Geralt have a heart-to-heart where they see all the ruins of where an ancient elven civilization used to live in this world. And so it'll be a good episode to talk about, all the racial inequalities that exist between humans and elves throughout the vast history of this Witcher world. And at the same time, show us fighting against the Scoia'tael, which shows us the complete extreme versions that elves have had to go through to be able to exist in this much more harsher human world. And the episode ends on a very sad note, because you see all the dwarves and humans that are sort of accompanying Geralt, Triss, and Ciri on their journey. The way their story ends, I won't exactly say how the story ends, but it just shows how insecure humans are to anyone that isn't human. It's just sort of the racial and special discrimination that exists within the Witcher world. And this is a good, and I think they'll introduce Yarpen Zigrin, which is one of the dwarves back in episode 6 of season 1, back into the series, because they all actually end up meeting, Geralt and them end up meeting him, and through their, common journey in the past, they end up journeying together as well. So I think that's what this episode will mainly focus on. I think we might have a very small chance of seeing Jaskier in this episode, and also get to see a lot of the sorcerers as well, sort of progressing the storyline forward with the potential upcoming war with the Nilfgaardians as they continue to advance throughout the continent. Turn Your Back is obviously about backstabbings and betrayals, so it's about that's why I think it might be focused on Dara, how he was a friend before and now he's an enemy now, and also about the dwarves and humans as well, sort of the racial inequalities and disparities that exist within the Witcher world, as symbolized by this imbalanced scale. Next episode is episode 6, titled A Dear Friend, and this one's kind of funny. Because Dear Friend is sort of based off on a sort of infamous letter that exists within the Witcher universe. It's because Geralt sends Yennefer a very funny letter, but Geralt's a dickhead, so he doesn't know how to send letters properly, and obviously him and Yennefer are lovers, but he sends the note by titling it as A Dear Friend. The letter is supposed to inform Yennefer about Ciri and requesting Yennefer to help him train Ciri and in the Temple of Melitele. But since he says it as Dear Friend, and even sincerely Dear Friend or some bullshit like that, Yennefer's this motherfucker is calling me friend, Dear Friend. So she sends a reply to Geralt and uses Dear Friend 50 times in the reply, and it's one of the most hilarious shit in the Witcher novels. And I would love it if Jaskier is the one to deliver this letter to Geralt and literally read the letter out to Geralt in his Jaskier fashion. How funny would that be? My god, I would love that shit. I think Dear Friend is literally going to be focused on the letter, Geralt informing Yennefer to go to this Temple of Melitele or pick Ciri up, because I think what the Scoia'tael attack will reveal is that maybe that somebody is truly after Ciri. Or better yet, Jaskier will come in with the information from Yennefer that somebody is after Ciri, that there is an individual named Ryans who is looking after Ciri, and this is where Ciri and Geralt are gonna part. Ciri, Geralt, and Triss are gonna sort of break apart, and Triss is gonna go back to the sorcerers to see exactly what the mages are up to. Ciri is gonna go off with Yennefer, and Geralt is gonna go off with Jaskier to figure out where Ryans is up to. So we're gonna get these forks in the road where our characters go in different directions, and we're gonna see what each of them are gonna be up to, and we're gonna see hopefully in this episode a little bit of maybe Yennefer and Ciri meeting for the first time, and then Geralt and Jaskier having their own journey as well. Now, what the symbol for this episode is actually showing us is actually it looks like a torch, right? At first hand, it looks like a torch, but at the same time, it looks like it's fingers, with two of the fingers and the thumb turning into flames. Obviously, a torch and fire makes me think of the holy flame of Nilfgaard. They all basically worship like the holy flame, and like the new Nilfgaardian emperor Emir Var Emrys is like, you know, the sort of chosen king of the sacred flame. You know, we get a little bit of that sacred flame dogma in season 1 as well, towards the end, where Fringilla is talking to Cahir. This torch might symbolize a lot of the Nilfgaardian army. At the same time, it could symbolize Yennefer as well, because she uses her fire spells. Yennefer is very good with fire-based spells as well. But I think it's more along the lines of the Nilfgaardian troops. It could also be Ryans' hand as well, because Ryans is scarred by Yennefer's fire a little bit. So we might see what Ryans is up to, since he's going to be a pivotal character going forward in the Witcher storyline. Not so much a pivotal character, but a pivotal villainous character. Oh. Here's the other thing. This is my big brain Witcher theory hat right now. Because of this symbol specifically, notice how the fingers are cut off. Right? Now, this makes me think of an ancient story about Ciri's ancestor named Lara Dorren. Lara Dorren was one of the first people to have like this incredibly strong elder blood power in her. So first, before I delve into this, I gotta tell you guys exactly who Lara Dorren is. Lara Dorren is the daughter of an elven king from another world. Yes, another world. Obviously, there's a vast multiverse within the Witcher, which the Witcher universe is just one part of. So in another world, this elven king had a daughter named Lara Dorren, and Lara Dorren was born with the power of the Elder Blood. The Elder Blood, which is Ciri's power. This power to basically control the pathways between different worlds and traverse different worlds. And so they wanted to control this power by having her, you know, get married to and mate with another, you know, person who has a strong elven blood lineage. However, what ended up happening is that one human sorcerer found his way into the elven realm, and basically the two, Lara Dorren and this human sorcerer, fell in love with one another. They ran away, much to the dismay of, you know, the elven and human races as well. And it's a very tragic love story, because the two fell in love, they both had a child, and, you know, everything ultimately ended up in like a romantic tragedy, like the Romeo and Juliet shit, but a little bit worse. You know what I'm saying? But why I bring that up in reference to this symbol is because in one of the ancients' retelling of the Lara Dorren story, they show that when Lara Dorren is pleading with one of the queens of that era to, like, you know, spare her life and like spare the elves and whatnot, the queen at that time, like, you know, shoves Lara Dorren away and basically tells her soldier to cut off her fingers. So Lara Dorren loses a couple of fingers just because she's an elf, and just because, you know, the humans hate her, and they despise this mixture between human and elven bloodlines, even though that's much more common in the current present state of the Witcher world right now. And so this symbol really made me think of Lara Dorren's cut fingers. You know, it's like the fingers are cut and the magic is like spilling out. And I think what this episode has the good potential of doing is maybe getting into the whole backstory of the tragic love story of Lara Dorren, and with Ciri learning a little bit more about where her power is from, either through Yennefer or when she reaches the Temple of Melitele. And Lara Dorren's story, it doesn't technically have to happen in episode 6. I think it could potentially happen in episode 1 as well. Maybe Ciri will learn about Lara Dorren through the other girls that exist in Nivellen's, who live in Nivellen's mansion as well. Now jumping into episode 7, titled Volet Mayer or Volet Meyer. Now this took me forever to figure out what the shit is going on. Volet Meyer is not a term I found while going through the Witcher novels myself. I had to scout through the web, and apparently it means deathless mother in Elven. Apparently there's a veteran actor that has been cast to play the role of Volet Meyer, and so this Volet Meyer is not a phrase or an event, it's a person. And obviously the symbol itself is a skeleton, you know, with its eyes covered and a sort of weird magic style symbol in its nose area. So this one not only gives me the creeps, but I still don't have any idea like what it could potentially mean. I'm sure that a lot of game players would think it has something to do with Philippa Eilhart, simply because in the Witcher 3 Wild Hunt video game, Philippa Eilhart has like her eyes covered, but I don't think this is referring to Philippa Eilhart, because Deathless Mother, I think, might refer to something along Ciri's storyline, Ciri's character arc. Deathless Mother might also refer to Nenica in the Temple of Melitele. Maybe she will appear to Ciri and sort of tell her the story of Ciri's, you know, crazy past, and at the same time what her power is truly capable of, or rather yet foreshadow the doom and gloom yet to come because of Ciri's destiny. This episode will also dive into like Geralt and Jaskir's journey and trying to figure out exactly more about Ryance, more about everything that's happening with the world. We might get to see a little bit of the other different kings and queens of the other kingdoms in the north, try to like speculate a little bit about, you know, what the Nilfgaardian army is up to, and apparently like try to work together and conspire against Nilfgaard, because that also happens in the books as well. We might see after Ciri reaches the temple that she starts to make friends with other, you know, other students at the temple, where we might meet Yare, which is a character that, you know, sort of plays a little bit of a role here and there in the upcoming episodes as well, and his character has been cast in this season, so yeah, that's definitely happening. Volet Meyer, since it's Deathless Mother, we might get some information on the Wild Hunt, because they've been cast as well. We've seen screenshots of the Wild Hunt several times in the past couple of months. So the Wild Hunt might play a role into Volet Meyer as well. We see like the Wild Hunt actually searching for Ciri, not just Nilfgaard and not just the sorcerers, not just Ryance and his third party, but at the same time the Wild Hunt might make an appearance in this episode as well, and we might see what they're up to. They're basically from the Elven world where Lara Dorren is originally from. They're basically after Ciri to get a hold of her power and bring her back to, you know, the other Elven world, and try to harness the power of traversing different worlds themselves and try to prevent a winter apocalypse that has been prophesized to basically consume all the different worlds. But I think Volet Meyer might also play into that prophecy a little bit as well. We might get a little bit more information on Lara Dorren, the myths and lores, even maybe a little bit about Falka, the Falka Rebellion that Tissaia de Vries hinted at back in season 1 when she was talking to Stregobor about, you know, putting Yennefer and Aiden instead of Aiden and Nilfgaard instead. So we might get a little bit of that. The skull obviously symbolizes a lot of death and destruction and doom and gloom. So we might see, you know, maybe Yennefer and Ciri having their own sort of short story journey where Ciri has to learn a little bit about her sorcerer side as well, you know, the magic inside of her. Oh, actually, if Volet Meyer is the character that I think she is, we might get more of Yennefer's backstory as well, instead of waiting for the upcoming seasons, because there's a point where Yennefer is very vulnerable, and Ciri might help Yennefer reveal a little bit more about her backstory as a hunchback, what she's had to go through, all the trials and tribulations that Yennefer has had to face, and that might be exposed in the Temple of Melitele when she's talking to either Volodymyr or Matron Nenica. And finally, it's like episode 8, the top secret. Obviously the episode is going to start off with like the Witcher music and all the different logos sort of melding together to form this incredible logo. Now some people tried to boost the image of this top secret logo, and it kind of looks like a tree. And so the obvious thing that people are thinking about is obviously the tree back at the Broccolon Forest, but I don't think that's what this is. I don't think that's what this is at all. What I think this is, and I'll get into this, but basically I think this episode is going to have like the climactic battle between Geralt when he finally confronts Ryance. Jaskier and Geralt both confront Ryans. Philippa Eilhart and Dijkstra are going to be there as well. Philippa Eilhart is going to be like play a role in the conflict between the two of them, and we're going to have like the epic final season 2 battle where Geralt goes up against like all these other sorcerers and like basically cleaves them and like crazy, you know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm looking forward to. We're going to see Jaskier do his like Jaskier stuff as well. Hopefully a new song, a new toss a coin to your Witcher, obviously. Episode 8 will come to a close where Yennefer takes Ciri to Tissaia de Vries, and Tissaia will meet Ciri for the first time and hopefully like meet the other sorceresses at the school. Yeah, I think they might skip a lot of the other backstory where like Yennefer and Ciri are going to like other locations and like trying to get money out of banks and whatnot. And yeah, there was one cool short story part where Ciri goes off on an adventure on her own to like a circus, and like this one crazy monster gets released, and it's the first time Ciri actually fights a monster on her own, doing like crazy ass spins and pirouettes, and like she actually has this like growth that, hey, you know what, I am a Witcher, I can kill monsters on my own as well. It's her first like real life test in a way as a Witcher, destroying monsters. So I think they might like mix a lot of those like character arcs and storylines together in this final episode. The one thing I'm not sure about is like what Yennefer and Ciri's big major moment is going to be, but I know Geralt's moment is probably going to be like that final battle with Ryans. We might get a little bit of Triss this episode as well, seeing what hinting at what the sorcerers are actually going to plan going forward, because Philippa Eilhart pretty much ends up learning something very important at the end of the battle with the Ryans. She learns who Ryans is, the person behind Ryans is, and this leads into a lot of what happens in the Time of Contempt, which is also one of my favorite books in the Witcher novels. Getting back to what this logo I think means, at first it kind of looks like a tree, but if you look a little bit closer, you know how there's like double meanings and double imagery within like a lot of these symbols. I think once we look closely at this image, once it's no longer blurred, we'll find that the tree is made out of a lot of dead bodies, and the branches are literally like human limbs and whatnot. And I think what this might be referring to is again about Ciri's backstory about Lara Dorren. Basically, the way Lara Dorren died is she died in a forest. And she died on like this open meadow next to like all these like crazy trees and whatnot. And she gave birth there and held her baby in her arms while she like passed away, basically. And even if you go there right now, you'll see, since elder blood was spilt there, a lot of these blue flowers have sprung up. Because wherever elder blood is spilled, there's like all this blue flower. I forgot what the name of the blue flower is, but like all this blue flowers sprout up every single time there something like that happens. So I think this tree of dead bodies might be sort of symbolizing all the dead elves that have sort of had to pave the way for Lara Dorren's lineage and Lara Dorren's bloodline to sort of come forth and finally lead all the way to Ciri, who is the final harbinger of the Elder Blood. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty damn certain it's not the Brokilon forest tree, because I can't see them going back to Brokilon, at least in season 2. I can't see them. Maybe in season 3, but I can't see them going back for season 2. But that's just what I think. I think it has something to do with like Lara Dorren's backstory, because I really want to. First of all, I really want to see that, and I think it'll be a very good way of describing the greater mythos and lore of the Witcher universe. Or it could be something completely new that the showrunners have just thought of, you know what I'm saying? Those are my thoughts. I think we might actually, in episode 8 might literally start off with a flashback to what happened in the past. I think the past is going to play a very important role in what happens in season 2. I think we're gonna a lot of like Geralt having to train Ciri trying to learn more about herself, Geralt becoming more of a father figure, the relationship with Yennefer and Geralt becoming a little less skewed compared to the way things left off at the end of last episode. We'll see a little bit of romantic tension between him and Triss. We'll see Jaskier play his role as part of the Redanian intelligence and sort of melding that storyline with the Geralt storyline as well. We'll see Kaer Morhen and get more information about the Witcher backstory. We'll accumulate all these information from different kingdoms, what the different kingdoms are up to, what the hell is Nilfgaard up to, Fringilla, Vigo, Francesca Findabair. Hopefully we'll get Sabrina Legacy and Tissaia de Vries and the Sorcerer's Lodge. So all the other sorcerers, even Bernard, as well, and Stregobor. We also got to see what Vilgefortz is up to. Vilgefortz of Roggeveen, bruh. Man, I can't believe they introduced him in season 1. That's crazy. Anyways, those are my thoughts for episodes 1 through 8, what I think will happen, what might happen based on my knowledge of the books. But I think as more images and more episode leaks come out and stuff, I'll post more videos on what I think is going to happen. I'm also going to be uploading my reaction to the Bestiary Part 2 and go through some of the Witcher monsters. I'm super hyped up on Witcher Juice right now, so I can't wait to watch more and speculate more and theorize more about everything that's going to happen in Season 2 until Season 2 finally airs. What do you guys think? Leave your comments down below. Have you guys read the books? Do you guys enjoy the books? Did you guys read them, or did you guys listen to the audiobooks? But what do you guys think about my thoughts and theories that I've just delved into from episodes 1 through 8? I can't wait to read all of them. Hope you guys are having a wonderful day or wonderful night wherever you guys are, and I'll see you guys later in my next Witcher video. Peace. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, please subscribe, hit that like button, and feel free to share the video, and I'll see you guys next time.